and thus by increasing our monthly quota by half and reducing monthly asset losses this financial year. We'll increase our annual profit margin by 20%, bringing home a cool $220k by Christmas. Now that's what I call pulling a Drew, $20.
Yeah, woo! You're the best, Drew! I love you, Drew!
You're the man, Drew. Hey, thanks, mate.
Great presentation, Drew!
Yes, Susan. God, this bathroom is so dark. There's got to be a light switch around here somewhere. Ah, here it is. G'day guys, $2.20 here, and welcome back to Sunset City. In the last episode, we were working on the central station of the city, and unfortunately, this thing doesn't work. It looks great, and it's going to work just super well down the track, but at the moment, it is a non-functional train station, and we'll try a couple of things a little later on in this episode. But for now, I wanted to work around a bit more of this part of the city because I did delete a whole bunch of it in the last episode with the intention of filling a lot of those gaps last week, which I obviously didn't. I just deleted a whole bunch of stuff and kind of worked on a train station, but now we're going to get to it. And the thing is that I didn't really know what to really build around here because in Miami, this area is a part of the city that has undergone quite a lot of changes, even quite recently. And that is the tricky part about this area is that there are a lot of high-rises, and obviously back in the 80s, it didn't really look like this. And I was honestly finding it really hard to find anything to get references from or any pictures or videos. I couldn't really find anything. I did find this great site that had this satellite images from 1999 where I could go through and explore and get a bit of an idea what this area did look like at least 24 years ago. And what I could gather is that this area kind of looked like a lot of parking lots, a lot of commercial and a lot of parking lots, which is kind of similar to what it is now, but you can tell that a lot of high-rises are now taking the spots of a lot of these parking lots. So that did give me a pretty good idea of at least the sort of changes that have undergone around this area. I can kind of imagine as well that it probably was filled with more commercial. And basically off that, I was like, okay, well, I don't really want to just build parking lots. Obviously it's probably realistic for a city, in the 80s, but it's kind of a little bit boring and I didn't really want to do that. So I decided to do a bit of a mix of all three. I have quite a bit of low commercial, and then I've also started to continue the skyline a little bit further into this area. Now I know that Miami definitely wasn't this tall in the 80s. Many cities weren't this tall in the 80s, but I did want Sunset City to be a little bit different. This is a fantasy city, and I did want to have a fairly tall skyline, particularly when we've got such a flat landscape. I think it is a nice little contrast, and I just think that the skyline just looks super nice like this. So I've continued a little bit, especially along this water edge where I wanted there to be a bunch of parking lots with some taller buildings. I'm imagining that these are condos, and I will go through and change some of their properties using the Ploppable Rico mod. Just getting into some of the settings and making the residential count pretty high around this area because they are large buildings and we do have a lot of parking lots just to cater for that amount of people around here. And this is just one area of a couple of spots that we are going to be building some fairly large buildings. I mean, these are going to be some of the smaller buildings that we're going to be placing down in today's episode, but they will make some pretty big changes to the way that the city functions. Changing a little bit of the ground color with some purple asphalt, and then even going through and changing the color of that asphalt so that it matches a little bit more to do with the color of the roads, and then of course some planters and some trees. I'm going to continue to... Wait, sorry. What's a noise? What is that? I think it's coming from over here. Hey, where am I? This isn't the men's bathroom. 1983? Oh man, I've time traveled! Well, at least my passwords and usernames are still safe and secure. Thanks to today's video sponsor, NordPass. How is Drew still accessing the Wi-Fi in 1983? Well, don't waste space in your noggin thinking about it. Just like you shouldn't waste space trying to remember all your usernames and passwords. Store everything in one place with NordPass Password Manager. Not to mention, by using the autofill feature, you can log in faster with no need for typing. No wasted time typing? How good's that? Need to buy a new shirt, but you left your wallet 30 years in the future? Well, with NordPass, you can shop and browse faster by securely storing your credit card and personal details and simply autofilling them when shopping online, so you can get back to enjoying your new life in a reality where your loved ones don't exist yet. You can even use the same account on up to 6 devices. NordPass syncs your credentials across your computer, tablet, phone, or whatever you're using. Are you still relying on your monkey brain to create unique passwords? Protect your accounts from intruders by generating complex and unique passwords with Password Generator. NordPass automatically encrypts your passwords and other sensitive data, and with the data breach scanner, you can find out if your online account or credit card information has been leaked.
Under construction? Oh, come on, man, what gives?
Yeah, I'm getting to that. You kinda interrupted my build.
Yeah, I'm almost done. Hey, if all that sounds good, then why not give NordPass a try? Get exclusive access to NordPass's best offer at nordpass.com/$2.20. Or you can use the code $2.20 at the checkout to get an additional 1 month free. You can find a link to all that in the description below. Thanks NordPass for sponsoring today's episode. Alright, get back to your fancy build.
I really hate that guy. Anyway, back to the build. It was at this point that I realized that I probably went a little bit overboard with the parking lots. I felt like some of these places definitely needed some sort of pool, recreational, or some sort of area just to relax, rather than just a parking lot. So, being a condo, I figured we should probably add some sort of pool area just below some of these places, particularly this one down here. Keeping the detail work fairly low, to be honest, in this area. Didn't really want to go too heavy. The only detail really is in the trees, adding in a lot of palm trees and just a whole bunch of different types. You know, these are kind of like garden beds, and these are areas that have a lot of introduced species. When I say introduced, I mean they're not just naturally grown in this area, of course. This is a garden area, so they've planted all these, and I figured that a variety was looking pretty nice down here, definitely a big variety of different palms and ferns, and I really like the way that turned out. But then for this condo here, I didn't really know whereabouts I was going to be placing any sort of pool area. I didn't really have the room for it. So I decided that it would probably be on the rooftop. So just placing down a pool down below and then dragging it all the way up using Move It, and just did the lowest of detail on that rooftop. Nothing too fancy, just a couple of props and a couple of people, and calling it a day with that. But a big aspect of placing down these condos was to change them from being a unique building that has people visit it. I wanted it to be a condo that had people actually living there. So going into the Reco mod and changing the value of people who actually live within these buildings, these are now local buildings that are saved on my computer. It's a really useful mod to change some of the values, even the level of the building, and just changing some of the values like that really adds a lot to the game, really adds a lot to your city, particularly when you can have these buildings that properly reflect what a building this size would actually be like. But it's now time to get into that annoying station I built. Yeah, it's not functioning. It looks great, doesn't function. Because I use the station network rather than placing down a station, it means that we don't have any trains arriving from any of the outside connections. Also turns out we have no outside connections. We're going to fix that. According to you, Smarty Pantsers, it looks like it's a pretty easy fix. It's just a matter of placing out a station and dragging out our own network and our own line out to the very edge of the map. And that way we can actually get trains to arrive there, which I think is a great fix. And just check out that traffic coming into the city. So basically, if you don't know, this map is an island, but we have a bunch of highways that go underneath the water here and connect up so that we do have the outside connections, but you just can't really see it. And man, we got some bad traffic. So that's gonna be the next episode, because that's causing just an enormous amount of problems. And unfortunately, because I don't really want to change too much of the landscape, I don't want to delete any trees, and I don't really want to see just a random train line just being dragged across my beautiful map. You know, we will of course eventually, but for now I just want to keep it underground, which is a super expensive move. So we're not going to be making much money at the end of this. We're going to be just absolutely losing it. But what I'm doing here is I'm placing down a station, because I did need to have an actual station somewhere on the map. So I figured I'd place one here, and I'm going to turn it off, but it's going to spawn a couple of trains. But then this line is going all the way out to this part of the map. I've actually chosen the furthest outside connection, because this is where the train line is going to go. Well, kind of. It's going to go out to the city where I placed the station, and it's kind of hard to explain, but just trust me, I've placed it out this way for good reason. In terms of the station out here, Joe got in touch and mentioned that, well, he's going to blow my mind with this fact that you don't in fact need a station out in the outside connection here. You can just place down a stop, which, Joe, I don't know how you figured that out, but yeah, that does blow my mind. and it is super useful because it means that I can just place down a stop there, and crazy enough, people will just board a train and take it all the way to my station. Now, this is the most expensive way of getting trains to arrive here, but it does work like a charm, and it also means that I can pick and choose which platform they use, which you don't really have that control if you were just relying on the outside connections just to work their magic, which is great. And then in terms of the trains, I was using these blue Amtrak trains that Besquigglehausen made, which I do love, but apparently they're not really time appropriate. The blue color scheme wasn't put in place until the 2000s, and the actual trains themselves weren't introduced until the 90s. So luckily there was another great suggestion that I use these orange ones, and again, they were made by Besquigglehausen, which is great because I love the actual models that he creates. But you can also tell that they're not called Amtrak, but they're instead called Simrail, which is his inspired version of Amtrak, and it's just a City Skylines specific one, which I also really like. I love not using that many names from real life, so it's kind of nice like that. I do really like that. But with the trains now picking up passengers from our outside connections, it was time to turn back on the fog and get into the real bulk of today's episode. No, it's not time travel, no, it's not condos, it's a storyline to do with Fabio Booster and his little soda company that's about to get, well, a pretty big marketing boost. So what are we building here? Well, I wanted to build an indoor sporting arena. This is, of course, inspired by a similar arena in a very similar location. I mean, let's be honest, this is pretty much a direct inspiration. And I'm doing that because I feel like this is the sort of thing that is very much like an iconic area of Miami. And, there's some features of Miami that I have to get, there's some things that I just feel like I have to capture. And this is one of those things that I think without it, I don't know, it just wouldn't feel right. I'm also dragging out a bridge here, but I'm not going to keep it. It's just a bit of an idea of where that's going to go. There will definitely be a bridge, and it's going to stretch all the way out to Sunset Beach, but we are a little bit away from that. So for now, I'm just going to place out where I think it's going to go, and we'll get back to that when we get back to it. Now you might be wondering, how does Fab Soda tie in with an arena? Well, Fab Soda is sponsoring this arena, and they will have the name plastered all over it, as you can see. Well, you can't see, but eventually they will. And also, I have placed down the vanilla one and the one that comes with the campus DLC, but I'm not going to keep it. I'm actually going to change it. It's going to be still a basketball stadium, but I end up changing the one that I use because I like this one, I like the vanilla one, but I just think that the one that I chose is definitely going to be a lot better. But we'll keep it a basketball stadium, so whatever this team is. Well, first of all, what do you think the team is? I kind of left that a bit open. Do you think, are they called the Sunset City Sea Lions? I don't know, I just made it up. But what are they going to be called? Are they going to be called something to do with Fab? I don't really know. I'll leave that open, and I'll leave that to you guys, and any other information, you let me know. I'm also really not going to take care of the capacity or the infrastructure surrounding. So at the moment, we do have a parking lot, but unfortunately, this is as good as it gets for these guys. We're gonna give them something later on. For everyone who's attending the stadium for now, you're gonna get a footpath over the busy road, and you're gonna get a parking lot. But apart from that, that's about it. I do plan to have the people mover. It's gonna have a station around here. I've got a good idea where that's gonna go, and I reckon the metro line's gonna be pretty close to this too. But for now, this is it. And everything you are seeing me do right now, none of this is actually kept. I just wanted to show you the process of, there's this. I never just place down something and go, okay, that's perfect. In fact, all this is gonna go. The only thing I'm gonna keep is the parking lot, but I'm gonna change the spot because this is fine. You can see people actually using the overpass, which is always exciting, but I just feel like there is a better spot for it. So you'll see that a little later on. And in terms of the arena, it's fine. I do like this basketball arena that you get with the campus DLC, but I really wanted to make it just slightly raised up, and I couldn't really figure out a way of doing it with the way that it kind of attaches itself to the road. It also comes with parking. It's kind of hard to work with that parking lot, so I decided to get rid of it. I wanted to build a plaza out the front of mine, and I've gone with this one from the Steam Workshop. This is a stadium from Quebec. This is the Videotron, and it's made by Luminoise. Well, he made the model for City Skylines, not the actual one. And this is just a beautiful looking building, and it even comes with just movable pieces when you turn it into a procedural object, which is what I did because I wanted to shuffle things around and make it my own. So, decided to just sort of move these pieces all around, trying to make something just to fit into this space. Also like that it's on this little angle that I got here, you know, just like a bit out of the ordinary, not just sticking with the grid. Kind of on the grid, but also a little bit off center. And you know, procedural objects was working really well for this, but I did realize after I'd already placed out everything that I wanted, I've realized that, well, Luminoise actually has also uploaded another version of the Steam Workshop that is just the building version of this, and it all comes in those pieces that I was moving around before. So I decided to delete the one that I was working with and decided to use the one that you can just place down the buildings instead. And I'm also going through the properties with the Rico mod just to turn them into a commercial building and just adding a little bit of commercial so that people will always go to this building. And with that, I deleted the version that I made with procedural objects and started to think about where I was going to be placing out this arena. You know, keeping kind of the same idea that I was doing before, but also just taking ideas that I liked, but then changing things ever so slightly. So for instance, I really liked the way that the building kind of sat up a little bit higher than the rest of this area. And then I also really liked the angle that the main dome was actually sitting on. And I also decided, I don't know how I found this building, but I found this building, you know, just a random building that I had in the collection, and it fits in really nicely out the front. So that is now the entrance. I also gave a little bit of extra space out the back there just because I wanted there to be a bit of a plaza. And I'm also using these keys that I have just arranged so that they are kind of following the same shape of the dome, just so it has a bit of a platform, a little bit of an amphitheater. I guess, I don't know, it's like this really nice garden area back there. I don't really know what it'd be used for. Maybe it's just a place to explore. I reckon it'd be a really nice spot to potentially watch some fireworks if there were some fireworks on the bay. It's just a really nice spot. It'd be a really great spot to walk around, and we're only going to make it a lot nicer. I also thought that just to keep things a bit different, we'd have a bit of a grassed raised section over here. Because it's a bit hard to work with the terraforming in the game, I use these networks that I can just raise up and down so that we actually have a bit of a slope there. We had a bit of space at the front, so I thought that this would be a really nice spot for a plaza. I always knew that I wanted to have a really nice plaza out the front, a bit of a garden area. I'm sort of imagining that this whole area, in fact this stadium, is a very new addition to the city. I know that this is based in 1983, and this is probably not the most 80s looking building, but I do think that, I mean, it's about as nice as it gets, the actual model of the building, and I think that this is definitely a new addition. I always feel like adding in a now open or even some billboards or some signs. Actually, you know, when we do billboard competition, which we will eventually, just keep that in mind. I think it'd be really cool to have some sort of billboard that advertised the grand opening of the Fab arena. I really wanted this to be nice. I really wanted to have a nice garden bed out the front. I really love the pathway, the pedestrian street out the front too, which is also very, very purposely built because we did need to control a lot of people. I didn't really want vehicles driving around here. So, you know, the people control is pretty decent for an arena with absolutely no other extra infrastructure. But I just really love the way it sweeps around. It's got this nice arching, curving road that I just really love. I think it works really well. And then I also wanted to connect it up to the street here, you know, just actually have a proper connection with bollards. But for some reason, I guess when you have a road, a bridge, and trying to make that connection didn't really work for some reason. Just wasn't I guess it just wasn't in the code of the game. So I kind of had to just cheat and make it a non-bridge, and then we'll just turn it into a custom bridge later down the track. It'll be much easier. On the left-hand side, I figured this would be a better spot for the parking lot, give us a bit more space on the other side, and then to make this into an arena, a basketball arena, I have dragged in a little cube. It's a service cube that basically just acts like a stadium, which is perfect because it means now that this is a working functional stadium. And I thought that this would also be a good idea to continue the pathway around, and I'm just sort of dragging that into that key there, just so that we've got the same kind of tile that just sort of going through the entire walking trail around there. And you will see people walking around there, which is super nice, and it is functioning really well in terms of people going into the actual theater, into the actual arena, and even just like visiting some of the shops around here too. I just love it when you can actually see people visiting the places that you create, and I even just love clicking on people and seeing that they are going to those places too. I don't know, something really exciting about that. But with people now flocking into Fab Arena, we can Fab Arena, oh my god, that sounds so good. That sounds like a fabulous ballerina, doesn't it? That's a stage name, Fab Arena. Anyway, Fab Arena, this is it. And I figured we needed some sort of just some fabulous sign out the front. So I decided to place down this signage here, and I thought, you know what, I could actually just stick this to the wall of the arena here. Now, I thought that this was going to work really nicely, but I don't know, I just felt like we had to do something a little bit different. You know, this was going to work, but I just thought we could probably do something a little bit more interesting. So I decided to drag out these letters to this space right here, which is where most people are walking into the actual arena space. And, you know, this is actually kind of like a nice little walkway just to see these big signs out the front, these big letters. So I scaled them down because they were a little bit large, and I started to arrange them so that the fab was on this left-hand side and the arena part was on the right-hand side. And just to line them up, I'm sure there's like an easy way of doing this with procedural objects. I'm trying to do it here, but you know, just doing it individually kind of took a bit of time, but it was fine. It worked in the end. And, you know, just sort of arranging them, making sure that they're all the same height, and even just changing that capital I there, turning it into an exclamation just by scaling some of the other pieces down using procedural objects. I mean, what a mod. That's about as good as it gets. The sign was looking super nice, but I didn't really know what to do for the colors. So I decided to whip out one of the fab signs and have a look at the signage colors for that. And I noticed that the word soda has these great colors on it. And I thought, you know what? We've got the same amount of colors as we do letters in Arena. So here I am changing the colors of Arena, the letters of Arena, to the colors of soda. And I tell you what, it looks pretty bloody fabulous. A couple of garden beds and flowers and some bushes, and I'll tell you what, those palm trees. Man, this place is looking pretty nice. This is probably one of the nicest and fanciest stadiums I have ever built. And like I said, I think that this is definitely a new build. I reckon this is definitely just opened. I reckon Fab Soda have invested a lot of money into this arena. I reckon they are sponsoring it pretty heavily to have a pretty fabulous sign out the front there. I promise that's the last time I'm going to say something like that. But if you've got any other suggestions about how Fab Soda Company sort of fits in with this, what else we need to build around here, what else in terms of the storyline, you know, does Mike Bergenzi fit into this? Probably not. Maybe he's kind of doing his own thing. But I've left it pretty open. There are a few things that we can add around here. You know, I haven't gone. It's definitely not a finished product. I reckon the garden beds and, you know, all the things around, yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. But in terms of the infrastructure, I mean, in terms of public transport, there's zilch. So if you've got any ideas for that, do let me know. And for the other side of it, on the left-hand side, we do need something else around there because I'm a little bit, I don't really know what else to put there. But for now, it's working. It's looking lovely. And if you've got anything else, please hit me up. But in terms of that space that we had where the parking lot used to sit, I did want to fill that area, and I wanted it to be filled with something that was somewhat large. I didn't really want to just do commercial, at least just, you know, row buildings there anymore. I wanted to do something a little bit bigger. So I decided to place down a shopping mall, which is a pretty depressing looking little shopping mall. I'm going to be honest, I have chosen that intentionally. I did want this to be a real contrast to the Fab Arena, and I think it's a definitely nice contrast for that. You know, it's definitely a sad little spot. And, you know, this whole area, in fact, you know, this whole area on the other side of that little river that we got there, is going to be a little bit more neglected. It's going to have a lot of the sort of strip mall shopping centers. It's also going to be probably home to the casino. There's going to be a bit of industry. The train line goes right through here. The interstate highway was built right through the neighborhood. So it's going to be definitely feeling the consequences of all that growth and all that change, and probably quite a bit of neglect as well. And we might even get to that in the next episode. Next episode, I absolutely, positively have to get to the highway, because like I'm not exaggerating here, but it's an absolute mess, and it's totally trash in the city. The city is really feeling the effects of just awful traffic. So I'm going to have to get into that, and we're going to have to make some changes, and I'm hoping that by changing a lot of the highway and the way it works, maybe some off ramps, maybe just sort of tweaking some things and getting into some detail work, most probably. I'm hoping to make some money from it. I'm hoping to see some of the changes within the city just by fixing up some of the highway. So we'll get into that. But all that is next week. Guys, thank you all so much for watching today's episode. It is always very much appreciated. A big thanks to NordPass for sponsoring today's episode, and a huge shout out to my beloved patrons for supporting the channel and helping me do this, make videos and talk to you guys, a part-time job. Daniel Jazorski, X-Steve, Tyler Todd, Tim Oftenhoffel, Harrison Norris, KBN, Jacob Iverson, Gator the God, Samuel Liu, Michael, Mike BR, Tivita Pinter, and Oliver Assis. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye!